We can also use unit rates, and I showed you a quick example of that on the other page. A unit rate is a rate with 1 for the denominator. And so if you're doing miles per hour, for example, then it's going to be some number of miles per 1 hour, as an example. And the easy way to get that, if you have like 500 miles per 10 hours, then you would just do the 500 divided by the 10 and get 50, and then you must have been going 50 miles per hour. So you just divide them. So I'll show you an example here. Suppose you want to know which box of cereal is the better deal. This is something that happens to me a lot in the grocery store. I look for bargains and I always want to find the best deal. So I can use unit rates to help me do that. One store sells a regular sized box with 9.8 ounces for $2.99. Now I know I'd like to do cents per ounce or something similar to that, where usually we put the dollars on the top and the weight on the bottom, and that in your rate fraction, so that when we get an answer it makes sense to us, because we're used to talking about cents per ounce or dollars per ounce, that sort of thing. So when I write this one for the first box, I'm going to put the $2.99 in the numerator, and I'm going to put the ounces, 9.8 ounces, in the denominator. And that will give me a unit rate. Right now it doesn't look like it because I have dollars over ounces, and I have a number in the numerator and the denominator, on top and on the bottom. So what I'll do is use my calculator again and do 2.99 divided by 9.8 equals, and I get 0.3051. So I'm going to write all that down, equals 0.3051. And that is dollars because we haven't converted it at all. It's still in dollars on the numerator. And we can say per ounce. Okay, $0.3051 per ounce. Well, that's not a normal unit for talking about cents. We usually just do a number of cents. So we could also write this as $0.31 and round to that pennies position. And since there's a 5 following the pennies position, the second decimal place, I will bump that 0 up to a 1. So it'll be 0.31 or 31 cents per ounce. All right, that's the first box of cereal. Now the second box of cereal was 14 ounces for $4.49. So I want to show that $4.49 per 14 ounces. And then when I divide those out, again, 449, so 4.49 divided by 14, and I get 0.3207. So this one would be $.3207 per ounce. And if I rounded this one to the nearest cent, then it would be 0.32 cents per, or 32 cents, sorry, I said that wrong, ounce. Okay, it looks like this first box of cereal, the smaller box, was the better deal by 1 penny per ounce. And you think, well, does that make that much difference? Maybe not, but if you're, sometimes when you check the unit prices, you come up with a big difference that you didn't expect to see. And if you're buying a lot of cereal, like I sometimes do for my family, it adds up. So over time, it would make a bigger difference than one single box would. Okay, so those are using unit rates to figure out what is the best price for an item in the grocery store. But you can also go to the grocery store and see these types of stickers right on the shelf, and they tell you generally a unit price. Like right here, it's saying unit price, 9.54 cents per ounce. And then it says the item is a honey farm cluster, and then it says that they cost $2.29 each. So I can't figure out how that could be when the number of ounces is 12 to 24 ounces. So for me, this sticker on the shelf doesn't make any sense. I can't figure out what they're talking about. What is costing 9.54 cents per ounce when each item that you can purchase is $2.29 and is somewhere between 12 and 24 ounces. So I'm not quite sure. If I do 2.29 divided by 12 ounces, I get 19 cents per ounce. And if I do 2.29 divided by 24 ounces, then I get the 9.54 cents. But we're really not sure what size our packages are because it says 12 to 24 ounces and each one costs $2.29. So not really sure what this one is telling us. Here's another one. This is eggs, and it says the unit price is $34.68 per dozen. Now, if you do any shopping at all, you know that that can't be real. Here's what the price they list for a dozen grade A large eggs is $2.89. So which is it? $2.89 per dozen or a unit price of $34.68? Now this one's just wrong. They made a mistake when they were calculating it because I think if you do $2.89 times 24, yeah, you get, oh, times 12, sorry, $2.89 times 12, you get $34.68. So they saw per dozen and they thought they had to multiply the retail price by 12 because you're getting 12 of them, but that's really not the case. They should have divided so you would know per egg how much they charge. So it'd be $2.89 divided by 12, and then you would get a unit price. I'll write this down here, $2.89 divided by 12 eggs, and then you get a unit price of $24.08. So I'll just do 24 cents per egg. And that's what they should have put on this instead of the $34.68 per dozen, which wasn't even the price anyway. So sometimes you have to watch out for what they're telling you on those stickers, but oftentimes those stickers are very helpful when you're trying to compare two different products that, you know, like two brands of spaghetti or something like that. You can usually look at the unit price and figure out which one's a better deal. So if you're at the garden store and you're trying to figure out which type of mulch you want to purchase for your garden, you might want to buy pine bark mulch for $3.77 for 3 cubic feet. You could also choose aromatic cedar mulch for $3.98 for 2 cubic feet, or evergreen mulch for $3.33 for 2 cubic feet. So we might want to look at the unit rates for those and see which one is the better deal. And so for the pine bark, we would take the money again over the measurement, so it'll be $3.77 for 3 cubic feet. And if I divide those out, 3.77 divided by 3, I get $1. I'll write this down. And it goes on, and then it's rounded the last 6 to a 7. So if I'm trying to show this as money, I would say $1.26 because I want to round to pennies, and I look at the next digit and it's 5 or greater, so I will bump up that 5 in my result to a 6. So now I have $1.26 per cubic foot. Now that's a unit price, and I'll be able to compare that with the unit prices for the other two types of pine bark. So then I have cedar. I don't think cedar is considered pine. So that one is $3.98 per 2 cubic feet. And when I divide that out, $3.98 divided by 2, I get $1.99 per cubic foot. Okay, the last choice that you have is evergreen. I think that's just like the trash of the pine trees or something. I don't know why they would call it that instead of the actual type of evergreen, but whatever. That one costs $3.33 for 2 cubic feet. And when we divide that one out, 3.33 divided by 2, I get 1665, and there was a decimal place there, so that becomes $1.67 per cubic foot. So which one is cheaper or less expensive? And when we look at the unit prices, we can see $1.26 versus $1.99 versus $1.67. And the cheapest one, the least expensive one, is definitely the pine. So pine bark mulch is the better deal. And that's not immediately obvious when you look at those prices because of the different numbers of cubic feet. But once you find the unit rates, then you're comparing similar types of quantities per 1 cubic foot for each of them, and that's what the unit rate is good for. Given all that the pine bark mulch is a better deal, what else might you want to consider when you're choosing between these mulches? I, for one, really love the smell of cedar, and this one says aromatic. So I might really just want to go with the aromatic cedar. Smell might be a concern. We might also be worried about how big the chunks are. I've seen like really small chunks of bark versus giant chunks like that, so the size of the chunks. I've also seen different colors, like one might be more yellowish white, the pine, I think, versus a more red, which would be the cedar. And so the color might be an issue for you. So, and then you might have an issue with the availability. So the number of bags that you need to buy and whether they have them enough. Okay, so there are other issues. Price is not always the main issue. And sometimes you would decide, okay, the cedar is the most expensive of the 3 types of bark, but I needed this color and this size and I love that smell, so I'm going to go ahead and pay the extra anyway. So you might decide that. So that's a valid reason for making a different decision.